I'll be demonstrating how to seam my favorite style of pillow. What you see here is my cable channel pillow. The pattern is available on Ravelry. And how this style of pillow works is there is a pillow front that you see here. And on the back side of the pillow, we have two, where we started here, the cast on, knit around to the front and finish here. And the two ends are overlapped and then button closed, which makes for a nice pillow that is snug fitting and also very easy to wash. We have two seams that we need to concern ourselves with on these side seams, and I'll be demonstrating how to do that. So let's get started. Here I have a small miniature cable channel pillow that's quite similar to the original size. You can see that I have two lifelines in my long rectangle. This one marks the bottom of the front of the pillow. This is the front. And then this lifeline marks the top of the pillow front. So this is where eventually my buttons will be sewn on, and you can see I have a buttonhole on this section. So what we're going to do is next flip this to the wrong side of the fabric. And I have a tiny little pillow form here. And I'm going to lay that on top of the wrong side of the front of the pillow. So what I'm going to do is bring this bottom portion up and over the pillow. We don't need to worry about it fitting over the sides. We'll get to that in a bit. But we're going to bring this bottom portion up and then take the top where the buttonhole is, and we're going to overlap that. And you can see I'm getting a nice snug fit over my pillow form. And once I have that in place, we want to make sure we overlap by, a good inch to 2 inches, depending on the size of the button that you're going to sew underneath. And once you get that lined up, and you don't need to fuss too much about having these all matching, but I just like to take some removable markers, pin through, make sure you get through all thicknesses, and pin that in place. And then we're going to take the pillow form out, and then it will be time to work our side seams. The side seams will be worked in the mattress stitch. If you're unfamiliar with that, I recommend that you watch my mattress stitch video for a really up-close look at that. Let's get started. So I'm ready to begin the mattress stitch on one side of the fabric. And before I begin doing that, I've got it pinned so I have the amount of overlap. But what I'm going to do is just stick in a couple of pins just to kind of keep me on track. And this lifeline will mark the top point of the seam. I'm going to go through all three thicknesses right here and pin that together. Of course, if you have a larger pillow, you'll probably have more pins. Now that I have that in place, I'm ready to begin seaming. I have threaded a tapestry needle with the working yarn, with a piece of the project yarn, and it should be, the length of the seaming yarn should be about 4 times the length of the seam. Now I'm going to turn this here to the side, and here is the lower lifeline, which marks the bottom of the pillow front. So what I'm going to do is work the mattress stitch starting at this point all the way up to the top. I'm going to be going side to side in a fashion. I'm going to be working 1 stitch in from the edge. So because we knit this in one piece, our V's on one side are going this way and up around. So I just recommend that you find a place that makes sense to you, like in between, say, this first stitch and the second stitch. That's a great place, and just be consistent in that kind of column, or I like to almost think of that as a ditch. So I'm going to bring my tapestry needle from the wrong side to the right side of the fabric, And I'm going to pull it through and leave a little bit of a tail that I will weave in later. But for right now, I'm going to tuck both my lifeline yarn and my tail inside. Now I'm going to work from side to side. I'm kind of on this side of that lifeline yarn. So I'm going to come right here and begin my seam. So you can see I like to grab 2 bars, and I go over all of that really well in my mattress stitch video. And then once you get started, you always just go in where you came out. So I came out of this little hole here, go to the other side, and grab 2 bars. And this is how we get started. Go back where I came out, pick up 2 little bars there. On the, actually what's the front of the pillow, come back here. Let me see, my working yarn's coming out there. Always staying in that same line of stitches. Back to, this is kind of my right hand side, back and forth, back and forth. And this part is just regular mattress work. So as you can see, I'm trying to get my fingers into this little space here. You'll have a better time of it when you have a full-size pillow. And I'm going to work like this, back and forth until I get to that overlapped section. So I'm going to pause just a second, and you can see how we're getting an invisible seam here. That's why I love the mattress stitch. So I'll go back to where I came out, almost to that overlap section. Back and forth, left and right. And once you get to these markers, kind of keep you on track. Just take that marker out and keep going until you get, I'm kind of zipping along now. Got into a nice rhythm here. Nice thing about seaming is there are no live stitches here. So if you work a couple and you're not happy with the results, you can easily just take it out and keep moving, you know, and try it again. Seaming takes a little bit of finesse and patience, but nothing to be afraid of. I'm going to check and see how close I am to the overlap. See, I'm getting close to it, so maybe just a couple of more stitches. Sorry, I'm trying to wiggle my fingers in here so you can see. And 2 ought to do it. All right, last one where this side's going to be single ply. And now at this point, now I'm getting to where my button flap here is overlapping with the bottom part. So I have 3 thicknesses here. So the great thing is now at this point where the overlap is, we don't need to worry about where we're grabbing our yarn. We just need to make sure when we go through this top layer that we also catch a little bit of yarn. But because nobody will be able to see that, you just have to make sure you snag something in there. So to begin this 3-ply section here, the overlap, I'm going to go into the bind off stitch here. And this edge is kind of wonky. I mean, we don't need to worry about that. It's going to get hidden. So I'm going to go through there. And then I'm going to, where I would normally catch the 2 bars, I'm going to make sure that I go through both of these, not only this top part, but the piece below. So you can see I'm kind of grabbing and coming out here. And then I'll come, this side will be treated the same. I'm going to go right in here, where I have that same little column, little ditch where I had been going. And now when I pull that, that's going to pull that in, and I'll futz with that just a little bit. I can remove this pin, come back where I came out over here. Sometimes it's a little hard to see, but when I go through here, I'm moving around, sorry about that. Come in here and I'm making sure I'm catching some of that piece below. No one will know if you caught it all or was in the same column. That part doesn't matter. And return to that single ply section. Back through here. I'm catching both plies there, or both layers, I should say, is probably a better word. Back to that single ply side. Looks like I have maybe one more stitch on my little example here that is going to catch that. I'll make sure I'm in the same little ditch there, or same stitches. And there we go. Now I'm past that part. So now we're back to just regular standard mattress stitch. Working our way up the top. I can probably undo that. And I'm going to seam all the way up to here, and I'll meet you back in just a second. Here I am at the top of that side seam, so I have maybe 1 or 2 stitches left. I've reached this lifeline here, so got that stitch, and looks like maybe 1 on this side possibly. That looks about right. And now once I've come to the top of that, I'm going to take my tapestry needle and just bring that in to the top of that seam, into the inside of your pillow. So I'm going to pull that yarn through to the inside, and then it's very handy. I'm going to turn the pillow inside out, and here's the seam that I just created, and we can just real quick do a quick and dirty little bury of that. And I won't take the time to do it very long, but you would bury your end right here. So now we have a nice sturdy and invisible seam on this side, and what I'm going to do is then come and I will do the same thing on the opposite side of the pillow, and then we'll show how to finish it. I have both of my side seams sewn. I can remove my lifelines at this point. Now we have a nice little pillow. For a pillow top, I'm going to take my pillow and try to get that in there nicely. So, sorry why you have to watch me mash this guy in here. So I'm going to get my pillow in here. It's good to have a nice snug fit. I'm just kind of making sure it gets into all the corners. And there we go. So I'm going to overlap that nicely. And now I just need to mark where I want my button to be sewn on. Now, one thing I want to mention, that you can do this style of pillow without buttonholes. If you just knit a long rectangle that is long enough to overlap your pillow, you could just sew the button through all this top piece of fabric and all the way through, and it'll look like a fake buttonhole. But here we have real buttonholes. So now that I have my pillow all folded in there, I'm going to take another marker and mark where I'm going to sew on, go into the center of that buttonhole and just mark where I want to sew that button. So now all I have to do is grab my button. I have this really pretty Skacel button here, and I'm going to, I like to sew my buttons on with thread because thread is stronger. Sometimes people like to sew it on with yarn so it exactly matches. The problem sometimes with that is your yarn is too thick for these holes, but if you can manage it, that's absolutely fine. So here I'm going to have that lined up with kind of with my pin, so that should do it. I'm going to remove that pin carefully. Here's where I'm going to sew the button on, and I made a nice knot with my thread, and I'm just going to really quickly in the interest of time, do a couple of go-throughs with the thread. As you can see, it's not the nicest of jobs here, but we'll go one more time through. Obviously, I would then knot it on the inside, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to tuck that in. If you do use yarn to sew your button on, I recommend using fray check to, it kind of will lock that little knot that you'll make in the yarn. It will prevent it from fraying, and knots in yarn just like to come out. You can even do that on the back of your thread here. Once your button is sewn in place, and then you just kind of button that guy up. Here's the pretty back of your pillow, and here's the cute little front of your pillow. So there we have pillow seaming. Happy knitting!